Now welcome to another lightning response video, where this time the question comes to us from Resnick232, who asked, "Hey Thor, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the old question, Anakin Skywalker, villain or victim?" Alright, so I think this is obviously a rather complicated, multifaceted question that has three main components or parties to look at, those being the Jedi, Palpatine, and of course Anakin himself. And so let's go through each of them one by one, starting with the Jedi, since I've encountered many people out there who put Anakin firmly in the victim camp simply because of the Jedi. And their arguments usually boil down to something along the lines of the Jedi should have listened more to Anakin and the problems or struggles he was having, tried to help him through his issues rather than just essentially telling him to suck it up and learn to let go of everything you fear to lose, which is what Yoda more or less told him to do at one point in Episode 3.
What must I do, Master Yoda?
Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose.
This then oftentimes morphs into a whole other conversation or misguided lecture, usually, by them about how Jedi not allowing attachments was the root of the problem with Anakin and the Order itself, that if he'd just been allowed to marry Padme and perhaps go back and save his mother as well, none of it happens, or he never falls to the dark side and everyone lives happily ever after or something. And this whole argument is usually predicated on the misguided belief that the Jedi teach their own, or they teach younglings that they should suppress and deny their feelings and emotions, which comes from the also false belief that an attachment is like literally anything you have any level of connection to whatsoever, that a Jedi can't even befriend someone, which is not true at all. In fact, this is all just plain wrong. Jedi do not suppress emotions, they learn to have control over them so that it's not the other way around, so that they don't act just based off emotions. That is what Darksiders do. That is the quick and easy path Yoda spoke of, to just get angry and respond and to be fueled by emotion. Instead, they try to remain calm and at peace when they act so that they can make the right decisions. I mean, I swear the people who get this all wrong have somehow never watched The Empire Strikes Back, or maybe they did not pay attention to anything Yoda said in the film.
Control. You must gain control.
And the control Yoda is talking about here to Luke is control over his emotions, which is something that no doubt Obi-Wan tried to teach Anakin. In fact, I'd argue most of Jedi training, or what you can all boil it down to, is learning a mastery over one's emotions and letting the Force guide them, which again is not the same thing as denying emotions exist or pretending you don't have them. That is virtually impossible to pull off. Not to mention, as Anakin rightly points out in Attack of the Clones, compassion is what guides a Jedi, or is the very foundation of everything they do or believe in.
Compassion, which I would define as unconditional love, is central to a Jedi's life. So you might say that we are encouraged to love.
And speaking of Anakin knowing exactly what a Jedi is or is supposed to be, or how they should act, what you have to keep in mind is when, as mentioned before, Yoda tells Anakin to simply let go of what he fears to lose, and everyone is kind of ready to blame Yoda for the fall of Anakin then, as well as the destruction of the Jedi, because Yoda just didn't listen and gave bad advice. Anyway, what you have to keep in mind is Yoda is saying this to someone who has almost a decade of Jedi training under his belt, and has also now been a Jedi Knight for 3 years. And so he knows exactly what Yoda is trying to say to him, because he's no doubt heard it a million times before during his training. Basically, this isn't Anakin's first lesson. This isn't Yoda being cold-hearted and expecting him to listen without understanding what he's asking him to do. This is Yoda reminding Anakin of his extensive training and what he signed up for when he became a Jedi, and what he can walk away from if he so desires. There is absolutely nothing keeping Anakin from leaving the Jedi Order and living the rest of his life with Padme and his children, nothing other than Anakin wanting to live both lives. You also have to keep in mind that there are 10,000 other Jedi in the galaxy who follow these exact same rules, and as far as we know, it's not like there is this epidemic of Jedi struggling with the Jedi Code and living double lives and then ultimately falling to the dark side. If this, what happened to Anakin, were a common occurrence or problem, something tells me the Jedi and their ways wouldn't have lasted for 1,000 generations, or roughly 25,000 years. In other words, are the Jedi to blame to some degree for the fall of Anakin Skywalker? Sure, they could have handled things with him better, and Obi-Wan, as great as a Jedi as he is, he likely wasn't the best choice in the moment, fresh after graduating into Jedi Knighthood, to train Anakin. Not that they, the Council, made that choice, but you get what I'm saying here. Obviously, Qui-Gon asked Obi-Wan to do it. But anyway, the thing is, you can't condemn an entire system, one that has been proven to work for literally tens of thousands of years and countless Jedi, because it failed one person. Especially when that person knowingly broke the rules and didn't leave like he could have, or at the very least confessed what he was doing, that he was married and in love with Padme and about to have children, so he could perhaps be helped the way he clearly needed to be. Okay, we then move on to Palpatine, and I think this one is pretty obvious, right? I mean, we're talking about perhaps the most powerful and manipulative Sith to ever live. What chance did a 9-year-old boy, chosen one or not, have against that?
And you, young Skywalker, we will watch your career with great interest.
Especially when Palpatine acted as a sort of father figure to him, one Qui-Gon likely could have been, but that Obi-Wan, again to take nothing away from him, could not be. I've also always assumed here that over the years, Palpatine subtly poisoned Anakin's mind against the Jedi far, far more than we see in the films, and we see quite a bit of it in them, don't get me wrong. He certainly fed Anakin's ego and helped convince him he would be and should be the most powerful Jedi ever, which of course is not what the Jedi should even be seeking to become. And so yes, Anakin is absolutely a victim of Palpatine's, but does that make him an all-around victim? Is he not to blame for Darth Vader? Well, let's take a look at the last piece of the puzzle here, Anakin himself. And the main question we have to ask is, does what Anakin went through, starting life as a slave, which yes is another big component that I didn't really discuss, then getting maybe not the best training from the Jedi ever, and not getting, I don't want to say special treatment, but a more customized training experience, shall we say, given his background. And then there was the manipulation of Palpatine, including playing on his fear of losing his wife. Does that excuse Anakin's actions or shift blame completely away from him? And the answer to that is quite simply no. There is no possible justification for many of the things he would go on to do, and I'm not just talking about years down the line after he'd been Vader for a while, but immediately after his fall to the dark side, like, killing a room full of children. I mean, there is nothing that could ever justify that. No amount of poor treatment from the Jedi, if you want to call it that, excuses anything like that. And yes, you can make the argument, and in the Star Wars galaxy, it is a rather legitimate argument, that the dark side made him do it. That when he storms the Jedi Temple, as well as many of the other horrible, horrible things he would do as Darth Vader, that it wasn't Anakin anymore. You could certainly try to make the argument that the victimization of Anakin led to the villain that is Darth Vader. Problem is, Anakin Skywalker still had a choice, and he chose to turn on the Jedi, and turn on Windu in particular, even though, and we can assume this because of his initial and immediate reaction,
what have I done?
it wasn't like Anakin really believed the Jedi were the bad guys, that they were evil. That was an excuse he used later on to justify his poor, or should I say, selfish decision later on and to himself. And so ultimately, Anakin made the decision that condemned him and turned him into a villain. He definitely doesn't deserve all the blame for what he became. There were certainly major contributing factors, but he also is not completely blameless, not even close to it. When push came to shove, he made the decision, and at many points along the way, he could have done anything from walk away to simply be honest with the Jedi Order. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to head below and tell me what you think. Is Anakin a victim or a villain, or is it far more complicated than that? And something tells me the comments on this one are going to be rather interesting and fun. Or of course, you can also ask a question for a future lightning response video. Just start your comment off with "Hey Thor" and ask away. Whatever you choose to do, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.